Hi, this is Laura with Ribbon and Bows on My, and we're going to learn how to make a Christmas tree ribbon sculpture hair clip. So I'll go ahead and tell you this tutorial is going to be a little bit long. We've got a lot of things going on here. We're wrapping an alligator clip, we're weaving our Christmas tree, and we're making a little bow, and if you want to, we're gluing down little rhinestones. But I'll tell you throughout the video where you can skip ahead. So let's get started. I'm going to put him here for reference. I'm going to start by wrapping my alligator clip. Now I'm only going to partially line this. So I'll go ahead and start with the inside tip of my alligator clip. And the reason I'm only partially lining it is because this is going to end up being kind of heavy. And that's a lot of work to put on a little alligator clip. So I'm going to go all the way around really thoroughly. And you want to make sure that you're wrapping your clip with maybe a glitter or a grosgrain or a velvet. If you use a satin, it might not really hold once it gets inside the hair. So you want something that has a little bit more grip to it. Okay. Now because this is going to be so heavy, I'm going to go ahead and put a spacer on the inside of my clip. And we sell these on the website. They're great for getting a whole lot of grip out of really fine hair, or if you're making a ribbon sculpture, just making sure it has a little bit of added grip to it. So things to keep in mind as we go, you want to make sure that the spaces in between your overlaps are pretty consistent and even. And I've found that my favorite clips that I've made, this is one of them, but I think this one might be a better example. I usually have a total of 5 loops on each side. So some of them are hidden here underneath the ribbon, underneath this bow right here. But I've got 3 right here and then 2 more little ones on each side. When I've gone for more, it hasn't been quite as attractive, but I think 5 is about the perfect number. You'll see right up here, we even go beyond the end of the alligator clip. So it's going to take maybe 1 or 2 ribbon sculptures to really get the hang of it, but go slow, and I'll try and share with you what I've learned from doing it so that you don't have to go through as much ribbon. So I'm going to place my alligator clip on my grid, and I found that if I go over, right here I'm on a center line, if I go over about 1 inch, that starts the bottom of my tree out in a way that's going to make it look good as I go up. So I don't want to be much wider than that, and I don't want to be much narrower than that. 1 inch is about perfect. I'm going to wipe my glue gun off and place my first dot of glue about 1/8 of an inch up from the bottom. And then I just want to make sure that this placement is as horizontal as it can be. So as I go up, I'm not going to slant my ribbon like this. I'm actually going to just overlap it and then maybe tug the center up just a little bit. And when I glue, I always want to be gluing on the top edge of the ribbon because the bottom edge is always going to be exposed. So we want to make sure that any glue mistakes are getting covered up as we go. Alright, so I apologize for all the hand switching, but this is kind of requires a little bit of movement. So I'm going to look at my bottom layer and make sure that both sides are even, and that looks about right. I'm going to come over to my grid and check. And then making sure that this loop is sitting about 1/8 of an inch up from the bottom edge. I'm going to wipe my glue gun, go in here, just give a little bit of glue, and wipe it clean as I exit. You may have to tug stuff into place a little bit here and there, especially when you first start getting used to it. Okay, so I'm going to do a switchback and make sure that this next layer of my tree is just slightly more narrow. So I'm going to come in just a little bit. Wipe my glue gun. And then make any small adjustments I need to make. Now I keep my green grosgrain, my 3/8 inch, I cut it at 17 inches because every time I make these there's a little bit left over, but you would not want to get to this point and be totally out of grosgrain, because then instead of just wasting 3 inches of grosgrain, you've kind of wasted, like 14, and that's not a good feeling. So give yourself a good tail to work with. Okay, so at this point you might be going off of the alligator clip a little bit. And I see I've made 5 loops on my left side, so it's about time for me to wrap this up. Now when I started, I only sealed this end because I was pretty sure that I would have to trim this. So I'm going to fold it over and look at it, and yeah, that looks like it's going to be about perfect. So I'm going to take my scissors, just trim it a little bit over at an angle, and seal my edge. Now if you have a liquid sealer for your edges, ribbon sculptures are a great time to use that, because you're working with so little ribbon and a lot of times your ends are exposed. You don't want a burned edge. Now I am going to tilt this last branch, so to speak, at an angle. You'll see what I mean right here. Yeah, so about at my 4th branch, I start angling a little bit because I don't have quite as much space to work with. And I'm also gluing ribbon down to ribbon, so there's going to be a little bit more of an overlap. But I love the way this looks. This is really sweet. It's not too wide, it's not too narrow, it's looking really good. So I'm going to put this aside and go ahead and make my bow. Now this is the bow that we're going for. 5/8 inch ribbon with 1/8 around the center. So you're going to need maybe 5 to 6 inches of 5/8 inch ribbon, probably closer to 6. You can always trim the edges. I love the way that this looks because it's a little bit bigger of a bow. I mean, that's really not proportional, but I think once you clip it into hair, it's really neat to be able to see this like really sweet little bow right up here at the top. If you wanted something that was a little bit more maybe 2 size or 2 scale, using a 3/8 inch ribbon and then trimming the edges and maybe making it even more narrow than this, that would also be a really good option. So my narrow edges are pointing down. And I'm going to bring them into an awareness ribbon shape. And then just kind of slowly tug this into place. I want my tails to be maybe just right there as wide as my loops. And I'm actually going to sew this. And just cinch together. Now, if you've never made these little bows before, it takes a fair amount of tugging to get it in place, but I swear they are the sweetest centers. The creasing is so satisfying. It's like I wish the bigger ones were this easy to pull together. It looks really cute right there. All right, so I'm just going to wrap it pretty snug and pull into place whatever I think is not working. And then, just like its bigger bow counterparts, I'm going to come to the back and tie it off right back here. And go ahead and trim your thread down. That's looking so cute. Okay, now at this point, you can take some of your bling and go ahead and just cover the center, which looks really nice. But because ribbon sculptures are so small, I feel like they're a really good opportunity to maybe do something really special, like going ahead and giving it a little bit of a knot center. You can always place your bling on top of that too. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to take my 1/8 inch and flip my little bow around, and just like we would for a bigger bow, put a little bit of hot glue back here. And then flip him around. And then looking to the front to make sure I like how tight my knot is, I'm going to hold it in place, flip this around to the back, and then put my needle nose glue gun right there where my finger is holding it together. And then trim the end. Oh my gosh, that is so cute! This really is the most satisfyingly easy little bow. I just love it. Okay, so I like my bow to be right up there towards the top. You can show a little bit of green at the top if you like to, but I like my bow to be as high as it can be. So I'm going to get it in place where I like it, and then I'm going to do the same thing I did when I was placing my knot. I'm just going to go in here, hold it in place, get my glue gun down in between the layers. So this is adorable. You could stop here, just let this little bit of sparkly trunk be like all the bling that you need. Really, really sweet. This is a great little ribbon sculpture. So this is going to take a little bit. And I'm going to use this as my reference. Now you'll see some of these are placed on overlapping ribbons. That's totally fine because your ribbon sculpture really isn't going to move a whole lot. So it's okay if you have rhinestones sitting on joints. And you can even put some hot glue down underneath these ribbons if you feel like you don't want them to move at all. Now with your center rhinestones, it's probably going to look best if they're running right through the middle of the tree, like directly in line with the trunk. And of course you want these to be evenly spaced as much as possible.